We paid a high personal cost. It wasn't just me alone. Even people working with me, my special assistants, who were not even given jobs after. Some of them were told you worked with us, so we are not going to employ you. Some were victimized. You know, my family paid a very high cost.
If that person happens to be a woman, great. If she happens to be African, great.
On the 9th of December 2012, the 83-year-old mother of the then Nigerian finance minister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, was kidnapped. When the news of her kidnapping made the headlines, most Nigerians thought it was a ploy by some criminal elements to extort money from the Harvard and MIT-trained economist. But there was more to the tale. Contrary to public opinion, the kidnapping was an attempt by unknown forces in government to get Dr. Okonjo-Iweala to resign because she was a thorn in the flesh with her anti-corruption moves during the tenure of former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. In her 2018 book titled Fighting Corruption is Dangerous, the story behind the headlines, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala narrated how her retired professor of sociology mother, Dr. Kamene Okonjo, was kidnapped by forces who objected to economic reforms led by her, particularly her crackdown on fraudulent claims for oil subsidy payments, which drained Nigeria financially. Narrating her ordeal, Dr. Iweala said that the first demand made by the kidnappers was for her to resign her position as finance minister on live television and flee the country afterwards. Despite the mental torture she was subjected to during this period, her patriotic leanings meant she declined their request, and thankfully her mother regained freedom.
When your mother at 83 gets kidnapped, and I'll never stop talking about it, because it was the worst nightmare of my life.
In Nigeria, the most populous black nation on earth, is overwhelmingly rich in mineral resources, but the over 200 million people in the country are plagued by poverty, hunger, and diverse forms of economic hardship, no thanks to corruption. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's adventure in Nigeria's economic scene started in the year 2003. when former President Olusegun Obasanjo appointed her as Nigeria's first female finance minister. This was a period when Nigeria was heavily indebted to global financial institutions, and the international community viewed the economic situation of Nigeria as badly mismanaged and seemingly hopeless. At the time, she had spent 25 years in the World Bank, but patriotism meant she had to return to the country and help fix the problem, which was caused by corruption in the form of embezzlement and mismanagement of public funds by previous governments.
Managing the economy while creating stability is vital, getting prices right.
She led Nigeria's debt management efforts and spearheaded negotiations with the Paris Club that resulted in the wiping out of $30 billion of Nigeria's external debt, 60% of which was outright cancellation. However, these achievements came at a heavy cost. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala set out on these economic reforms fully aware of the corruption going on in every sector of the economy. Determined to put the country on the right path, she introduced measures aimed at fighting corruption, such as dealing with the menace of ghost workers.
I found out that as finance minister, when I needed to pay salaries, I had to transfer money, cash, to the Ministry of Agriculture. For instance, they would give me a list at the end of the month and say, these are the number of people employed in the Ministry of Agriculture this month. So this is the amount finance has to pay, and then we would transfer the resources to them. Guess what? People can introduce names every month. And they did. So we got the phenomenon of ghost workers who became ghost pensioners. And I said to President Obasanjo at the time, we don't even have an electronic platform or a financial management system embedded in an IT platform for the country to work, a large country like Nigeria. And then I said, we need to do something. So with his backing and permission with the economic team, we were able to then get the World Bank, DFID, USAID, went into a project to build this platform. But it takes a long time. We started, and when I left in 2006, it was not finished. And people were fighting all the way. So in 2011, when I was called, when I realized that this project had basically been stopped after I left, I decided it's one of the reasons I went back. Because those people would not want me to come back. So they could keep blocking and putting ghost workers. So we went back, and by the time I left the second time, we had 75% completed it. Go and read the IMF Article 4 report.
After several attempts aimed at harming her and her family members physically failed, corrupt forces decided to channel their efforts at destroying her reputation.
It was not easy. When that didn't happen, then they tried to damage my reputation.
She was accused of misappropriating $1 billion during her time as finance minister under President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
Tried to do so much extensive reputational damage. You know, I hijacked $1 billion. But when my husband saw that headline, he asked me why he's still paying a mortgage.
Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala survived several attempts to pull her down, and when she left office as finance minister in 2015, the international community re-embraced her wholeheartedly.
I have to say thanks to the international community, Sanjay. You asked me, how did you withstand it? I withstood it because I had Nick Stern is here, who endorsed the book. Homi Masood, there's so many friends. Internationally, people were behind me and saying, we know you're not like that. You've been with us for 25 years, 30 years. We know what you're capable of. Very grateful to many African leaders, presidents who reached out. 90% of people were behind me. And what I say is that's extraordinary, that I had that luck. What of others who didn't have an international career?
While Dr. Okonjo-Iweala was fending off the evil forces behind corruption going on, she did not lose her plight for women in the Nigerian society that was, and still is, largely patriarchal. She has been vocal about the status of women in Nigerian society and has always called for the representation of women in politics.
Women are not as active in some of the spaces as we would like them to be. In the political space, in legislature, you need many more women, like in Rwanda, for instance. So where over 50% of women are legislators. In Ethiopia, where I think more than 30% are non. So we would like to change attitudes so that women can move more into the governance space.
Inspired by her exploits, Nigerian women started the #BeLikeNgozi challenge on social media in February 2021 to celebrate her achievement of becoming the first woman and the first African to be named the director of the World Trade Organization. The trend started after businesswoman Temi Giwa Tuboson promised a cash gift of 100,000 naira to anyone who replicated Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's signature outfit, especially her scarf. Quizzed on why she started the challenge, Temi Giwa Tuboson expressed love for Dr. Okonjo-Iweala and described her as an inspiration. Despite working in faraway Geneva, Switzerland as the Director General of the World Trade Organization, her love for the growth and prosperity of Nigerian women has not quenched. Shortly after the inauguration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala flew down to Nigeria for a private visit to the newly inaugurated president. Addressing reporters after the meeting, she disclosed that her meeting was born out of the need to prefer solutions to Nigeria's economic challenges, especially the plight of women in society.
We had a really good conversation on trying to look at community and grassroots programs that can be put in place to create jobs for young people, on trying to support women and children who are those who are bearing the brunt of some of the suffering.
Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has taken her fight against corruption as a gospel beyond Nigeria and has constantly reminded African leaders of the need to lead exemplary lives in politics.
To me, of the root causes of corruption on the continent is the way that we finance or do not finance elections properly. We've adopted systems that demand that politicians campaign, haven't we? Campaigns cost money, but where does that money come from? If we don't find a legitimate means of supporting campaigns, then all sorts of ways are found to do this.
Her efforts and accountability have not gone unnoticed in the international community, which is evident in the numerous international appointments she has bagged, such as a member of the International Monetary and Finance Committee at the International Monetary Fund, IMF, an ex-official member of the Board of Governors at the African Development Bank, the AFDB, a chair of the board at the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, GAVI, and several others. She is also a recipient of numerous awards, such as the 2004 Times European Heroes Award, the Chicago Council on Global Leadership's Global Leadership Award, the David Rockefeller Bridging Leadership Award, the BBC 100 Women Influential List, Forbes African of the Year Award, and many more. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has also received an honorary doctorate degree from 21 global academic institutions, including the London School of Economics and Political Science, the University of Oxford, and the University of Pennsylvania. These institutions also include reputable Nigerian academic institutions such as Obafemi Awolowo University OAU, the University of Calabar, the University of Port Harcourt, and a few others who have also conferred honorary doctorate degrees on Dr. Okonjo-Iweala. At the age of 70, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is a force to be reckoned with in the global economic landscape and does not look set to stop the campaign against corruption or disrespect for women.
The question we should ask is, what are those countries doing right? Very often, we are not consistent. One regime goes out, another comes in, and they throw away even the functioning policies that were there before.
I focused on trying to deliver. I'm working round the clock because I recognize that if I could do a good job, other people would no longer have inhibitions about giving women the job. And that was a very, very big objective for me. And it worked.